The text came through at 2 a.m., waking me from the first decent sleep I'd had in months. Thanks for the idea, sucker. Check the App Store, face blowing a kiss. I stared at my phone, heart sinking as I opened the App Store. There it was, Flowspace, the productivity app I'd spent 2 years developing, now live under Tech Venture Incorporated, Ryan Caldwell's company. My former best friend and business partner had beaten me to market with my own creation. The app description was word for word from my pitch deck. The interface screenshots were exact copies of my wireframes. Even the marketing tagline, where focus meets flow, was mine. 5 missed calls from my sister lit up my screen. Ellie, did you see? I saw, I said, surprisingly calm. It's fine. Fine. He stole everything. The bastard launched your app. He launched an app. I corrected, getting out of bed and opening my laptop. Let's see how it goes. The betrayal shouldn't have surprised me. The signs had been there for months. Ryan's sudden disinterest in our partnership, his constant questions about technical details he'd never cared about before, the way he'd insisted on having access to all our shared drives for backup purposes. What he didn't know was that I'd noticed him copying files 3 months ago. Security cameras are wonderful things, especially when your partner doesn't know they exist. By morning, Flowspace was trending. Tech blogs were calling it revolutionary. Ryan was all over social media, giving interviews about his vision and innovative approach to productivity. He wore the same stupid turtleneck Steve Jobs made famous, thinking it made him look visionary. From the ground up, I conceived Flowspace as a paradigm shift, he told TechCrunch. It's about creating a seamless integration between thought and action. I actually laughed. Ryan couldn't code Hello World without Stack Overflow. But he could talk, I'd give him that. Week 1 numbers rolled in through industry contacts, 50,000 downloads. Venture capitalists were circling. Ryan posted a photo of himself with a champagne bottle shaped like a rocket ship. To the moon, the caption read. I waited. Day 8, the first complaints appeared in app reviews. Crashes constantly after 10 minutes of use. Lost 3 hours of work when it froze. Promising concept, but technically broken. By day 10, the 1-star reviews were pouring in. Tech blogs that had praised Flowspace were now questioning its stability. Is Flowspace the Theranos of productivity apps? One headline read. Day 14, my phone rang. Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. His second call, I answered. Ellie. His voice had lost its smugness. We need to talk. About what? About Flowspace. There are some technical issues. Technical issues? I put him on speaker, recording the call, legal in my state. What kind of technical issues? The app is crashing. Users are losing data. Nothing's syncing properly. The whole backend is failing. That's unfortunate, I said mildly. Have you tried turning it off and on again? This isn't funny. I need the stability algorithm. The one that prevents memory overflow during extended sessions. What algorithm? Don't play dumb, Ellie. The core algorithm. The one that makes everything work. Oh, that algorithm. I pulled up a file on my laptop. 20,000 lines of elegant code that represented 18 months of problem solving. The one I developed independently? The one that wasn't part of our partnership agreement? That algorithm. Silence. Then, you knew. You knew I was taking the files. I suspected when you suddenly became interested in technical architecture. I knew when I checked the security footage and saw you copying our shared drives at 3 a.m. Those were partnership assets. The UI designs were partnership assets. The business plan was a partnership asset. The name, the branding, the pitch deck, all partnership assets. But the core algorithm? I smiled. That was my personal project. Developed on my own time, on my own equipment, filed with the patent office under my name 6 months ago. You're lying. Patent number 11,234,567. Method and system for dynamic memory management in productivity applications. Filed by Eleanor Grace Patterson, sole inventor. Would you like me to send you a copy? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. What do you want? He finally asked. Want? Nothing. I have everything I need. Ellie, please. I've got investors breathing down my neck. Pre-orders. Press commitments. If I can't fix this, then you probably shouldn't have stolen an incomplete product, I suggested. It's like stealing a car without an engine. Sure, it looks pretty, but it's not going anywhere. I'll cut you in. 50-50, full partnership. We had a partnership. You dissolved it via theft. 60-40. Ryan, you're not understanding. I don't want flow space. It's tainted now. Associated with instability, crashes, lost data. You killed it. Then what are you going to do? I minimized the call and pulled up another window. My new app, FlowState, set to launch next month. Same concept, better execution, and most importantly, complete with the stability algorithm that made it actually work. I'm going to launch FlowState, I said. My app, with my algorithm, with a marketing campaign that emphasizes reliability and data security. Maybe a tagline like, the productivity app that actually works. That's predatory. No, predatory is stealing your best friend's work. This is just capitalism. I'll sue. For what? Using my own algorithm? Developing my own app? Please do. I'd love to show a judge the security footage of you stealing files. The forged partnership dissolution documents. The emails where you told investors you were the sole creator. Another long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was small. Ellie, I'm going to lose everything. The investors will pull out. I'll be blacklisted. Yes, I agreed. You will. We were friends. Best friends. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for everything. Right up until you decided it counted for nothing. I pulled up the email he'd sent to investors, claiming sole ownership of FlowSpace. You didn't just steal an app, Brian. You stole trust. You stole friendship. You stole 2 years of my life and tried to build your future on it. How was I supposed to know about the algorithm? You weren't. That was the point. I leaned back in my chair. Did you really think I'd put everything in our shared folders? That I'd leave my most valuable work where someone who'd betray me could take it? You knew I'd betray you? I hoped you wouldn't. But I prepared for the possibility. I thought about the nights I'd spent perfecting the algorithm, making sure it was legally and technically separate from our partnership work. Trust but verify, Ryan. You taught me that, ironically enough. Please, Ellie. There has to be something. Actually, there is one thing. I pulled up his social media, all those boastful posts about his vision and innovation. Post a full retraction. Admit you stole the app concept. Clear my name as the actual creator. Do it across all platforms. That'll destroy my reputation. Your reputation is built on a lie. I'm just asking for truth. And if I do this, you'll give me the algorithm? No, but I'll consider not pursuing criminal charges for corporate espionage. He hung up. 3 hours later, the posts started appearing. Ryan Caldwell, admitting to stealing the FlowSpace concept from his partner. Admitting to launching an incomplete product. Admitting to being a fraud. Tech Twitter exploded. Investors pulled out within hours. FlowSpace was removed from the App Store by day's end. Ryan's company folded by the end of the week. Meanwhile, I polished FlowState for its launch. My attorney fielded calls from Ryan's former investors, now very interested in funding the original creator. My marketing team prepared campaigns that subtly referenced learning from others' mistakes and the importance of complete solutions. A month later, FlowState launched to rave reviews. Stable, secure, successful. Everything FlowSpace had promised but couldn't deliver. The tech blogs that had praised Ryan now praised the real visionary behind the productivity revolution. Investors who'd lost money on FlowSpace through funding at FlowState. Users who'd been burned by crashes flocked to an app that actually worked. Ryan texted me once more months later. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some algorithms can't be fixed with a simple patch. Some crashes are permanent. And some people learn too late that stealing someone's work is easy. It's making it work that's hard. FlowSpace had 50,000 downloads in week 1. FlowState hit 1 million in its first month. Turns out, the most important part of any app isn't the idea, the interface, or the marketing. It's the tiny piece of code that makes everything else possible. The part one kept locked away, waiting for someone to prove they didn't deserve it. Thanks for the idea, sucker, he'd texted. He was welcome to it. Ideas are cheap. Execution is everything. And the algorithm that makes execution possible? That was never for sale, never for sharing, and definitely never for stealing. Ryan learned that the hard way. 50,000 users learned it too. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't stopping someone from stealing from you. It's letting them steal just enough to hang themselves. Week 1, 50,000 downloads. Week 2, massive crashes. Week 3, total collapse. Week 4, I launched the real thing. He stole my notes. I kept my masterpiece. Turns out that made all the difference. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned. Maybe McDonald's is hiring. She laughed at our father's funeral, loud enough for everyone to hear. Some of us were born for better things. 5 years later, I walked into her company as the new owner. Her termination letter was my first executive decision. The funeral home was supposed to be a place of respect, but Victoria had never been one for appropriate behavior. She stood there in her $3,000 black Chanel suit, surrounded by her equally wealthy friends, making sure everyone could hear her assessment of my future prospects. "Poor Samantha," she continued, fake sympathy dripping from every word. "First she drops out of law school, and now with Dad gone, who's going to pay her bills? Though I suppose retail work has its dignity. Someone has to fold clothes at Target, right?" Our father's body was literally 10 feet away. The man who'd raised us both, who'd loved us equally despite our differences, was lying in a casket while Victoria used his funeral as a stage for her cruelty. I stood there in my borrowed black dress, exhausted from working 3 jobs to pay for Dad's medical bills, and said nothing. What was the point? Victoria had been the golden child since birth. Prettier, more charming, more willing to play the games that wealthy people played. When she married Richard Blackstone III and joined the family empire, her superiority complex went from insufferable to pathological. "At least I was here," I finally said quietly. "Where were you when Dad was dying?" "Paris. Dubai. I can't keep track of your shopping trips." Victoria's perfectly Botoxed face barely moved. "Some of us have actual lives, Samantha. Important obligations. I couldn't just drop everything to play nurse. That's what hospice workers are for." "He asked for you," I said, my voice breaking. "Every day, he asked where his Tory was." "Well," she adjusted her designer sunglasses, "I'm here now. And I've graciously handled all the funeral arrangements, haven't I? You certainly couldn't have afforded this on your... What do you make? Minimum wage?" I made $72,000 a year as a data analyst, but Victoria had never bothered to learn what I actually did. In her mind, anyone who wasn't married to money or born into the Blackstone empire was essentially homeless. The reading of the will the next day went exactly as expected. Dad had left everything to Victoria: the house, the investments, the family heirlooms. Everything except his old laptop and a wooden box of personal items. "Fitting," Victoria smirked as we left the lawyer's office. "He knew I'd put his assets to good use." "What would you have done?" "Sold everything to pay for your sad little apartment." I clutched the wooden box and said nothing. Inside was Dad's watch, some photos, and a letter addressed to me. Victoria didn't ask about it. Why would she? It was just sentimental garbage to her. That night, I opened Dad's laptop and found something that changed everything. For the last 2 years of his life, while cancer ate away at his body, Dad had been developing something extraordinary: an AI algorithm for supply chain optimization. The code was brilliant, revolutionary even. His background in logistics combined with his late-life passion for programming had created something that could transform how businesses operated. The letter in the wooden box explained everything. "My dearest Sam, your sister got the money because money is all she understands. You get this because you're the only one who will see its true value. I know you gave up law school to care for me. I know you worked yourself to exhaustion to pay for treatments my insurance wouldn't cover. Victoria may have my assets, but you have my legacy. Make it count. All my love. Dad." I spent the next 6 months refining Dad's code, using my data analysis background to enhance his algorithm. I lived on ramen and hope, working my day job and coding all night. When it was ready, I didn't shop it around to the highest bidder. Instead, I started my own company, Whitfield Logistics Solutions, named after Dad. The first year was brutal. I ran the company from my studio apartment, eating 1 meal a day, reinvesting every penny. But Dad's algorithm was genuinely revolutionary. It could reduce shipping costs by 30% while improving delivery times. Word spread quickly in the logistics world. By year 2, we had contracts with major retailers. By year 3, Amazon was knocking on our door. I hired carefully, brilliant people who'd been overlooked by traditional corporations, people who understood what it meant to build something from nothing. Meanwhile, Victoria continued her life of luxury, posting Instagram photos from charity galas and yacht parties. She'd mention me occasionally to her followers, always as the struggling sister she was so worried about. Her favorite story was about the funeral, how I'd shown up in a borrowed dress and left with just some old junk. Blackstone Industries, the empire Richard's family had built over generations, was struggling. They'd resisted technological adaptation, believing their name and connections would carry them forever. But in the digital age, dinosaurs die fast. Their stock price plummeted. Contracts dried up. Richard's father brought in consultants who recommended a full restructure and technology overhaul. That's when they found Whitfield Logistics Solutions. I'll never forget the conference call where they pitched me on a partnership. Richard himself led the meeting, not knowing who owned WLS. We'd incorporated in Delaware, and I'd kept my name off all public documents. Your technology could save our company, Richard admitted, desperation leaking through his corporate speak. We're prepared to offer $50 million for a 5-year exclusive license. Not interested in licensing, I replied through my voice-disguised conference line. But I might be interested in an acquisition. You want to buy Blackstone Industries? He laughed. Do you have any idea what we're worth? About $320 million at current market value, I replied. Down from $2 billion 5 years ago. Your debt-to-equity ratio is catastrophic. You have 3 months of operating capital left. So yes, I know exactly what you're worth. The negotiation took 2 months. They fought, threatened, begged. But math doesn't lie, and the math said they were dying. In the end, I acquired Blackstone Industries for $280 million, mostly in leveraged buyouts and assumed debt. The Blackstone family retained a 10% stake and 2 board seats, but I had full operational control. The day I walked into Blackstone Tower as the new owner was carefully orchestrated. I'd scheduled an all-hands meeting for the announcement. Victoria, who ran their luxury goods division, poorly, sat in the front row with the other executives, live tweeting complaints about having to attend another boring meeting about digital transformation or whatever. I wore my best suit, not designer but perfectly tailored. When I walked onto the stage, the confusion was immediate. Victoria's face went from bored to shocked to enraged in 3 seconds. Good morning, I said, savoring every word. I'm Samantha Whitfield, CEO of Whitfield Logistics Solutions and your new majority owner. The room erupted. Victoria shot to her feet. This is a joke. This has to be a joke. Sit down, Victoria, I said calmly. You're interrupting a company meeting. She remained standing, shaking with rage. You can't, you don't have. The money? No, I didn't inherit any. I built it. While you were shopping in Dubai, I was building the algorithm that's going to save this company. While you were mocking me at our father's funeral, I was laying the groundwork for this moment. I clicked to the next slide, our 5-year projection. Blackstone Industries has been hemorrhaging money due to outdated practices and nepotistic leadership. Effective immediately, we're restructuring. All executives will reapply for their positions based on merit, not marriage or birthright. You can't fire me, Victoria shrieked. I'm a Blackstone. You're an employee, I corrected. And based on your division's 40% revenue decline over the past 3 years, not a very good one. Your termination letter is waiting in your office. Security will escort you out. Richard tried to intervene. Samantha, let's discuss this privately. Victoria is my wife, she's family. She's incompetent, I interrupted. Her division lost $12 million last year alone. Her expense reports show more spending on champagne than on market research. The only reason she wasn't fired years ago was nepotism. That ends today. I turned back to the room. Anyone else who feels they deserve their position based on their last name rather than their performance should follow Mrs. Blackstone out. The rest of you, the ones who've been carrying this company despite toxic leadership, let's talk about your futures. Victoria was escorted out screaming threats about lawsuits and revenge. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. I outlined our integration plan, announced merit-based promotions, and introduced the technology that would revolutionize their operations. The employees who'd been overlooked for years finally had hope. The lawsuits came, of course. Victoria sued for wrongful termination, defamation, and emotional distress. The judge threw it all out when presented with her performance reviews, all written by Richard, all glowing despite empirical failure, versus actual financial data. Richard tried to use his board seat to block changes, but the other board members had seen the numbers. They sided with profitability over nepotism. He kept his title but lost all operational power. Victoria's social media meltdown was spectacular. She posted about being betrayed by blood, about how I'd stolen her rightful position. The internet, presented with the full story, was less sympathetic than she'd hoped. Turns out, mocking your sister at your father's funeral doesn't play well with the public. She tried getting jobs at other luxury brands, but her reputation preceded her. Who wants to hire an executive who lost $12 million annually and blamed it on her assistant? The Blackstone name, once her golden ticket, became her scarlet letter. Last I heard, she was working as a consultant, code for unemployed with savings. Richard, stripped of his executive position but still drawing dividends from his family's remaining 10% stake, stayed married to her. They downsized from their mansion to a modest 5-bedroom in the suburbs. Victoria posts inspirational quotes about rising from ashes and learning from hardship. She never mentions our father anymore. As for Blackstone Industries, now Whitfield Blackstone Tech, we're thriving. The integration of Dad's algorithm increased efficiency by 35% in the first year. We've hired back many of the employees Victoria had laid off to fund her expense account. The company is worth $1.8 billion now, approaching its former glory through innovation rather than reputation. I kept Dad's photo on my desk. Not the formal one from his executive days, but the one from his last year, thin but smiling, teaching me to code from his hospital bed. Next to it sits the wooden box he left me, now holding the original USB drive with his algorithm. Victoria was wrong about one thing in particular. She said some of us were born for better things. The truth is, none of us are born for anything. We become what we choose to become through our actions, our choices, our willingness to see value where others see nothing. Dad saw potential in code while dying of cancer. I saw potential in his legacy while grieving. Victoria saw only what she was born into, never what she could build. That's why she's posting motivational quotes, while I'm running the empire she thought was her birthright. McDonald's never did call me back after that funeral. Good thing I found something better to do with my time. Something that would have made Dad proud. Something that proved the only inheritance that really matters is the one you build yourself. The termination letter I signed for Victoria is framed in my private office, not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that power earned is always greater than power inherited. That cruelty at a funeral creates echoes that last for years. That sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's becoming the person who decides whether your tormentors succeed or fail. She was right about one thing, though. Some of us were born for better things. She just got confused about which one of us that was. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.